go over something a little bit complicated today, so I'm going to be as succinct as possible to hopefully make sense. So when you get Botox delivered, it comes as a powder. You can't inject a powder, it just doesn't work. You have to add a liquid to it. So we call the liquid a diluent. We add some, usually bacteriostatic saline to it, and the amount that you add to it varies. If you add 10 cc's of saline or 1 cc of saline, there's still only 100 units in there. So when people ask, are they watering down their product, it's kind of a complicated question because we all have to water it down, so to speak, but the amount that we water it down varies. At this practice, we use 1 cc of bacteriostatic saline to reconstitute 100 units. So it's a 1-to-1 mixture. But this way, it's really easy to do the math when we go to inject it. So we also use a syringe called an insulin syringe to inject this 1-to-1. So we pull up our toxin into this insulin syringe and we inject it. And when we're finished injecting it, you can see there isn't any Botox left in this. This is a no waste syringe. There isn't 1 drop of Botox left in this. So every unit of Botox goes into the patient. Now, there are other options for syringes. A lot of people don't like to use so many little ones. It's a little more work on the injector's part. Sometimes they use what is called a luer lock syringe, and this is the cheapest option. But the problem with this option is there's some trapped in the top of the hub here. So in this particular hub, I'm going to pull it out with this blue dye that I have up in here. We have a trapped amount of liquid, and I haven't even gotten it all, but I'm looking here. And there's also some in the needle too, because you have to put a needle on top of this. And in this particular one, just a quick try here, I was able to escape out 5 more units that were in the top of this. So there's still some in there that we're losing. So I'm assuming there's probably a good maybe 8 units that didn't get to the patient with this particular syringe. So somehow the patient isn't getting the full amount that they're paying for. So that's not the best option, even though it is the cheapest and probably fastest option for you. There's some missed product. There's also going to be some product in the hub and the needle. As you can see in there, there's some that's trapped in there as well. So probably 5 to 8 units missing from each injection. Now, if you want to spend a little bit more on a syringe, this one's called a low waste. You can actually use this and hopefully not get as much lost drug, although you can still see there's some in there. I'm gonna guess there's probably about 2 units in here. Yep, there's actually 4 units that are in here, not to mention what's also in the needle. So you have about 4 units that you're losing with this particular syringe, the low waste. You have between 5 and 7 or more on this regular luer lock syringe, and you're not wasting any with the no waste syringe, the insulin syringe. So either one that you choose, it's really going to impact your patient. Sometimes they're paying for 20 units, let's say, but they're only getting, depending on the syringe you're using, between 16 or 18 units or even less sometimes. And so their results aren't going to last as long because we know dosage equals duration. On another note, when we reconstitute the bottle, as we all have to do, sometimes people overshoot on this, and this is where the true watering down comes into play. So you really only need to overshoot or draw up 0.1 extra, and that's to account for the needle, the loss in the needle and the loss in the hub. So if you are reconstituting 2.5, you should pull up 2.6 of bacteriostatic saline or whatever your diluent is, and you will lose 0.1. So you'll get exactly 2.5. If you're doing a 1-to-1 reconstitution, you would pull up 1.1, and that way you get in only 1 in the bottle, and that's exactly, you'll get 100 units exactly out of that. So where people overshoot, they're maybe adding, instead of 2.6, they're doing closer to 3 or 2.8 or 2.9. Now there's more diluent, and they're doing the math as if they put in 2.5, but there's this extra amount that gets in there that basically does water down the Botox or the toxin. So that's another way that your patient is having not quite as many units as they're paying for, and their results aren't lasting as long. And I actually see this a lot. I'll ask an office, what's your reconstitution rate? And they'll say 2.5 or 2.0 or 1. And then I'll watch them pull it up, and they said they've been trained to pull up usually between 0.3 and 0.4 more than what their actual reconstitution rate is. And they say it's to account for the loss in the needle. But we know from studies how much actually gets lost in the needle, and it's generally about 0.1. So just make sure you're cognizant of that when you're putting together your dosing and your reconstitution rate.